What should I do? At this rate, the concert will be. There are only 10 minutes until you're on stage. What are you going to do? Since I was a child, I admired an incredible female violinist who played the music I dreamed of. She was always my goal, my idol, and the ideal woman to me. But just before her final concert, a lighting fixture backstage fell and hit her. Ugh! A faint groan escaped her as she laid in my arms. Upon closer look, I saw that a piece of debris was lodged in her ankle. Her dress was also torn badly, making it impossible for her to go on stage like this. I'll do it. What? With that injury and that dress? But this is my last performance. I can't fail. Please, let me go. But with that foot, you won't be able to stand for long. And look, the bandages are peeking out from under your dress. It'll look to the audience like you were in an accident. But still. Seeing her eyes well up with tears, I made up my mind. I'll handle this. What? What are you talking about? You're useless. What could you possibly do? Travis, the manager, looked at me with frustration. I was just a janitor to him. But what happened next would be a miracle I'd remember forever. My name is Kenneth, and I work part-time as a janitor at a music foundation. In the concert hall, where performances are usually held, I clean the auditorium, the dressing rooms, and the storage areas. I like to gaze at the empty hall during breaks. The vast, empty hall is completely silent, untouched by outside noise. In this space, I feel as if I'm alone in this grand, luxurious area. If only I could perform in a hall this big, it would feel amazing. I thought to myself as I looked at my fingers that didn't move quite the way I wanted. I'm going to become the best violinist in the world and perform for a huge audience someday. Wow, that's amazing. When you do. Of course. Let's play together on the biggest stage in the world, okay? Yeah. Two young kids, full of dreams and hope, held hands and laughed together. That dazzling memory floated into my mind and then faded away. Hey, Kenneth. What are you doing? Still slacking off here? A loud voice jolted me back to reality. The man calling me was Travis, the orchestra manager, who for some reason always seemed to have it out for me. You haven't even finished cleaning the loading dock. Stop wasting time and get moving. Useless people are such a hassle. Seriously. Can't rely on you for anything. Originally, I had been hired as a temp worker for this orchestra. At first, they said I'd start with simple office tasks and, eventually, work as a music librarian, managing scores. But somehow, this man targeted me and stuck me with janitorial work. Did you hear me? Forget the hall, it's the storage room you need to clean. And move the boxes from yesterday further back. Even an idiot can handle that, right? Yes. I understand. As I was about to leave the hall with my cleaning supplies, a woman passed by. This was Sabrina, the granddaughter of the foundation's director and, incidentally, my childhood friend. Kenneth? What are you doing here? She tilted her head, looking puzzled at me with my cleaning supplies. Just then, Travis came rushing over. Well. Sabrina, welcome. What brings you here today? Oh, I came to discuss the charity concert next week. Travis, why is Kenneth carrying cleaning supplies? Oh, he's a total novice who recently joined us. He knows nothing about music. You see, if you work in the orchestra, you need at least some basic knowledge, but he's just completely clueless. Honestly, he's more of a burden. I thought he could at least handle cleaning, but his slacking off has been quite an issue. As Travis told this to Sabrina, her gaze hardened, and she raised her voice in protest. Excuse me, but do you even know who you're talking about? This person. Sabrina. It's okay. But it's fine. It's true I don't know much, And if I think of it as learning from cleaning, there's no need to be upset. When I stopped her, Travis glared at me with a look that said, "What's a useless guy like you talking so big?" But he quickly changed his expression and started flattering her. "Sabrina, you're as beautiful as ever. Just having you here brightens up the place. Next week's concert is bound to be a huge success just because you're performing. Now, why don't you leave this guy and join me for some tea?" Sabrina was speechless. She looked like she still wanted to say something to him, but perhaps deciding to get on with her plans. She gave me a regretful glance before leaving. Later that day, while I was working in the storage room, she came to see me again. "Kenneth, I'm so sorry. I didn't introduce you here so you'd end up with this kind of work. Should I talk to Travis for you?" Looking apologetic, she offered, but I told her it was okay as it was. For now, I'm fine just doing cleaning. Besides, I've hardly ever done a part-time job before, so it's not entirely wrong to say I'm still useless. I'll just keep working hard to be helpful to everyone. Honestly, Kenneth, you really are too humble. She sighed softly, smiling as she spoke. You know, for this charity concert, I'll be performing a solo. But I've decided it'll be my last. What? Why? You've worked so hard since you were young, aiming to become a professional violinist. I remembered how, during competitions and university exams, she practiced her violin tirelessly, even sacrificing sleep. Once, when she developed tendinitis from over-practicing, she went so far as to get pain-relieving injections just to compete. I had always thought she'd go on to become a professional. Why would she suddenly? When I looked at her in shock, she gave me a sad smile. Kenneth, deep down, you know how I feel, right? I'm just tired. Then take a break. If you do, I'm sure you'll want to play the violin again, just like before. Her violin playing was truly exceptional, without any exaggeration. She'd even received invitations from music groups overseas. She had a dedicated fan base, released solo concerts, and even CDs of original pieces. She was essentially already a professional, so it was baffling to think she'd give up her dream. I heard your recent solo concert was sold out, right? Well, that's how it looks. But did you know more than half of the audience was family and people connected to my grandfather's company? What? Really? Yes. You can see people's faces clearly from the stage, you know? At first, I was thrilled, thinking so many people had come to hear me play. But when I looked more closely, it was mostly familiar faces, and it just disappointed me. I'm sure Grandpa handed out tickets to boast about his granddaughter. If someone high up in the foundation hands you a ticket, you can't really refuse, even if you don't care about the performance. Sabrina's tone sounded resigned. I worked so hard, thinking I'd earn those awards and people's recognition. But that's not how the world sees it. To them, I'm just a rich foundation's granddaughter who got her awards through money and connections. They think I play the violin like it's some luxury accessory. Sure, being able to afford a multi-million-dollar violin is thanks to money. But no one sees my actual skill. Lately, playing the violin just doesn't feel fulfilling anymore. I could feel her pain all too well. The people around her might not mean anything by it, just casually gossiping for entertainment. But each of those words, sharpened with clear malice, deeply wounded her. Just ignore the rumors. Don't let a small group's opinion get to you. Focus on your true fans. People could say comforting things like that so easily. But there are very few people who can truly let things go so simply. Honestly, I had noticed that your playing has seemed a bit lifeless lately. Right? That's why I think it's time to let go. Of course, I'll still perform for places like nursing homes. That's something I find fulfilling. I see. I've always loved your music, so it'll be hard to let it go. Thank you. Promise me you'll be at the last concert, Kenneth? Yeah, I'll be there for sure. On the day of Sabrina's last concert, I had taken the day off. I wanted to fully take in her last performance as her fan. Just as I had resolved to do that, I got a phone call. Travis was calling, saying I needed to come in because someone else couldn't make it. Are you serious? Of all days, it had to be today. An underling like you doesn't get to put in for days off. Hey, didn't I tell you to make sure the stage area's trash was cleaned up? What? I already took care of the trash backstage. What? Don't lie. When I came in this morning, garbage was scattered everywhere, and it was a hassle to clean up. Make sure you take all that trash to the dump area. Although something felt off, I headed backstage as told to move the trash. Today's charity concert was structured with an orchestra performance in the first half, followed by Sabrina's solo in the second half. Since many performers would be walking around with their instruments backstage, any trash would make it difficult to pass through. I decided to finish up quickly so I could listen properly to her solo performance. Kenneth, there you are. I was worried you wouldn't come since I couldn't see you. Sabrina stood there in her performance attire, giving me a slightly awkward smile. She must be nervous. No way would I miss your last concert. I'll finish up here and listen from my front row seat. Thank you. Since it's my last time, I feel like I absolutely can't mess up, and that's making me nervous. Look at my hands, they're shaking so much. But seeing you here somehow made me feel calmer. She smiled, holding her trembling hands. Then, she looked curiously at the trash bag I was holding. What's with that trash bag? Oh, Travis told me I need to take all the trash around here to the dump area. It'd just get in everyone's way otherwise, right? Now. Then let me help you out a little to distract myself. What? No, Sabrina, it's fine. Oh, it's all right. I just felt like moving around a bit. Without a second thought, she reached for the large trash bag in her dress. Worried her beautiful dress might get dirty, I quickly tried to stop her. Just then, a towering stage light toppled toward her. Look out! I instinctively jumped forward to shield her. We both tumbled together onto the pile of trash bags. A loud crashing sound echoed through the backstage as the light hit the floor. Ugh! A small groan escaped her as she laid in my arms. Upon closer look, I saw a shard lodged in her ankle. Sabrina! Are you all right? Panicking, I realized it was a piece from the shattered light. Her dress was badly torn, and the wound looked painful. We need to treat this right away. I lifted her up and rushed to the medical room. Fortunately, the glass was quickly removed, and the injury wasn't too deep. But with her injured foot and the torn dress, she wouldn't be able to go on stage like this. It would take at least an hour to dress the wound and find a replacement dress. What should we do? At this rate, the concert. Just then, Travis arrived, looking for her. He glanced at me with a slightly puzzled expression, then looked down at Sabrina's injured foot, his eyes widening in shock. Sabrina, what happened to your foot and dress? Well, a stage light fell, and I got hurt. It's not as bad as it looks, but my dress is completely ruined. What are we going to do? There are only 10 minutes left until your performance. For a moment, Sabrina looked like she was about to cry, but then she quickly steeled herself, her expression determined. I'll do it. What? With that injury and dress? This is my last performance. I can't fail. Please, let me go. But with that foot, you won't be able to stand for long. And look, the bandages are peeking out from your dress. It'll make it obvious you had an accident to the audience. But still. Surely, if she went on stage like this, the audience would be too distracted by her injury to appreciate her music. Seeing her large eyes fill with tears, I made a decision. How much time do you need me to buy? Huh? No, I mean, how much time do you need me to buy? I'll handle it. What are you talking about? I'll buy time. I'll do whatever it takes until they get a chair to support her leg and a new dress prepared. Kenneth. She knew my background well. But even so, she chose to place her trust in me. Travis, just for a little while, an hour would be enough. Could you let him take the stage for me? Him, this guy? Impossible. If we put someone like him on stage, it'll ruin the entire charity concert. It's all right. I vouch for his talent. Please, let him do it. What? No matter how much you ask, Sabrina, I'm in charge here. Putting an incompetent like him on stage is beyond reckless. Facing Travis's stubborn refusal, I spoke up. If I fail, I'll take full responsibility. You can fire me, do whatever you want. But please, this is her final performance. Just let me do this. I'm asking too. Travis glared at me and spat out his words. Fine, if you think you can, then go ahead. But you'll take all the blame. This'll be the last time I have to see your face. Serves you right. With a parting shot, sounding like sour grapes, he left the room. Well, Sabrina, I'm going now. Don't give up, let's both do our best to the end. Yes, I won't give up. Kenneth, good luck. Yeah, I'm off. With a reassuring nod to her worried smile, I walked toward the stage. From the stage, I could hear lively cheers. As the powerful orchestra continued its performance, the atmosphere in the hall grew excited, and just as the audience anticipated Sabrina's entrance, a man in everyday clothes, someone they'd never seen before, appeared on stage. Wait, where's Sabrina? Who's that guy? Did the program change? Get the beautiful violinist out here already. With murmurs from the crowd, I gave a slight bow and took my place in front of the grand piano, its sleek black surface gleaming. My heart pounded in my chest. It had been a long time since I'd felt the touch of the keys. Calm down. I'm fine, this is all for Sabrina. Come on, fingers, move. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and pictured her smile. In the next moment, my tense fingers loosened, moving freely. Starting slowly, but with steady rhythm, I began to play. After that, my fingers remembered everything. Without even thinking, each melody flowed smoothly from my fingertips. I played a familiar song by a British rock band, arranging it with a pop touch yet keeping it rich and full. In the audience, I spotted some familiar children's faces. I decided to play a popular anime song that kids would love. Then, delighted voices of wow rose from the audience. As I continued to play familiar melodies with a lively beat, I could tell the people who'd been grumbling earlier were now captivated by the piano. When I transitioned to classical music, my specialty, I heard more murmurs of appreciation from the audience. Wait, isn't that Kenneth? Oh, right. He's that famous pianist they used to call a genius, isn't he? I know him. He used to perform with a renowned orchestra in Germany. Yes, I'd once set records in national competitions and had been known as a prodigy pianist. From a young age, I attended a local music school. Though I grew up in an ordinary family, where piano or violin lessons were seen as things only wealthy kids could do, I'd begged to join simply because a cute girl in the neighborhood was attending that school. That girl was Sabrina. At first, I only wanted to accompany her violin playing, which was why I started piano. But the more I practiced, the more I realized how much I loved it. Before I knew it, we'd become close, sharing our dreams for the future. I'm going to become the world's greatest violinist and perform in front of countless people someday. Wow, that's amazing. When that happens, will you let me accompany you? Of course. Let's play together on the world's biggest stage. Yeah. With that shared dream, she and I worked hard, hoping to one day stand on the same stage. Especially me, I swept through countless competitions, even gaining a reputation as a prodigy. Right after graduating from music school, I was noticed by a world-renowned conductor, and before long, I was performing with one of the most famous orchestras in the world. Back then, I had no doubt I'd become a professional pianist, performing on stages across the globe. But I was just a big fish in a small pond. No matter how much praise I received in my country, the world stage was a different beast. I was stunned by the obvious skill gap between myself and the other musicians in the orchestra. The harder I tried to play well, the more my frustration seeped into my music, and I ended up floundering. The constant pressure led to small mistakes, and those around me grew critical. Is he really the guy who dominated all those competitions back home? Must have been dreaming. Japan has great food, but talent? Not so much. His playing lacks any spark. It's boring, no excitement. He's done for. Each harsh criticism drained my spirit. And then, in a major concert, I made a catastrophic mistake. The contemptuous gazes directed at me from all around. The disappointed voices of people I once trusted. Those memories haunted me night after night, until I couldn't even bring myself to touch the keys, let alone stand on a stage. A diagnosis from counseling, PTSD, coupled with anxiety-induced hyperventilation. They told me my future as a musician was all but lost. I abandoned my work overseas, returned to Japan, and confined myself at home. A world without music, plunged in darkness. I couldn't bring myself to do anything, even eating was difficult. Honestly, I think I was in a pretty dangerous state. But in my darkest hour, Sabrina reached out to me. At first, I couldn't even get out of bed, but she was patient, persistent. She brought me meals, cleaned my room, and slowly coaxed me outside with light-hearted conversations. Take it slow. You love music, don't you, Kenneth? If you stay connected to the sound, one day, your worn-out heart will start to heal. She said this with a gentle smile. She was always my savior, my understanding friend, my closest companion. For her new beginning, I wanted this concert to end on the highest note. With that thought in mind, I realized, here on stage, I had finally overcome one of my own barriers. Ha ha! I'm so happy. The words slipped out before I knew it. It seemed my emotions were pouring into the music, and the audience was watching, their eyes shining with enjoyment. As I wrapped up with a final, grand flourish, the audience rose to a standing ovation. The hall was filled with thunderous applause, and I was so moved, I couldn't speak. When I glanced toward the side of the stage, I saw her in tears. It seemed she'd managed to change into a beautiful white dress just in time. I picked up the microphone by the piano and addressed the audience. Thank you so much for listening to my impromptu performance today. I had been performing overseas, but due to certain reasons, I couldn't bring myself to play piano anymore. But tonight, I got to play for you, and it's all thanks to her. Let me introduce you to the greatest violinist in my world, who saved me, Sabrina. I escorted her from the side of the stage, bringing her back out under the spotlight. With a beaming smile, she bowed to the audience. Sabrina, if you're willing, could we perform together, like old times? I'd love to. We began with the sonata for piano and violin that we used to practice as kids, followed by many other pieces we performed as a duet. Everyone was captivated by the way our music intertwined, the perfect harmony we created together. When our performance ended, the applause from the audience continued, unending. Sabrina and I both bowed deeply to the crowd. Kenneth, thank you so much. Because of you, I was able to give the best performance I could for my last time. I have no regrets. After all, I got to play with you again. This is the best memory of my violin career. No, it's thanks to you, Sabrina, that I could play piano again. You've been there for me this whole time. I really appreciate it. Your piano is truly the best. Kenneth, if you don't mind, would you perform with me again someday? Of course. I'll play with you anytime, Sabrina. Thank you so much. She was genuinely overjoyed, as if my overcoming my trauma meant as much to her as it did to me. And with the audience's relentless calls for an encore, we played again, side by side. The audience's smiles, their cheers, and the smile of the person I cared for most. I engraved this day into my heart, a memory I would cherish forever. A few days later, the foundation sent an investigation team to look into the incident with Sabrina's injury. Based on the circumstances and security camera footage, it was discovered that Travis was responsible. Apparently, he had been resentful since my hiring at the Music Foundation, with her grandfather, who was the chairman of the foundation, Mr. Moore, involved. Travis believed I'd been hired through connections with the chairman, and he saw me as a threat to his future position as stage manager. Though he hadn't intended to hurt her, he admitted he'd hoped to intimidate me. To me, her grandfather was just a familiar face from my childhood, like any neighborly grandfather. There had been no favoritism or special treatment. When Travis learned from our manager that I'd once been a famous pianist, he was left utterly stunned. "So, you're that renowned pianist they called a genius?" I had no idea. Well, it's been a long time since I last performed in Japan. Turns out, we were both just music lovers all along. Where did I go wrong? It's embarrassing. My past actions can't be forgiven, but I'm really sorry. Your playing was incredible. I could never compare. Ha, I'm pathetic. Travis, there's no hierarchy in music. I know how much you love it. Ugh, you're such a good guy, you know that? With a serious expression, Travis looked at me and muttered, fighting back tears, "I'm sorry. I'm really glad your hands are okay." After that, Travis left the orchestra. No one knows where he went, but I hope he's still involved with music. I was officially hired by the Music Foundation, now overseeing score management as a librarian as originally intended. My piano performance that night received praise, and I now perform in concerts as a pianist. Whenever I play, she's by my side. Since then, she also joined the orchestra and now works as its music director. Surprisingly, she's a natural at it. The way she commands even the most seasoned musicians has earned her the nickname the Empress, no longer just the lady. Since that day, we've been partners, both professionally and personally. Having seen each other through the highs and lows, we share a bond of complete openness and trust. When we play our instruments, it's as if our thoughts transcend words. Music has been the core of my life. It brought me to her, gave me fame, and took me to rock bottom. But music also saved me. I'm sure that from here on, I'll keep playing the music I love, with the person who means the most to me. Through good times and hard times, music will always be there. Oh no, the president's script is missing. Sophia, an executive assistant, was in a panic as the meeting was about to begin. Apparently, the script the president needed for the meeting with the foreign department store Mary's had gone missing. Kyle, another executive assistant, was smirking at Sophia. It seemed possible that Sophia had been set up by Kyle. Kyle had been openly dissatisfied with the fact that Sophia shared the role of executive assistant with him. In the end, I was the one chosen to accompany Kevin, an executive, along with Kyle, instead of Sophia. Kyle was probably hoping I'd make a fool of myself. If I, who had often comforted and encouraged Sophia, made a mistake big enough to get fired, it would play right into Kyle's hands. As soon as Jason, the president of Mary's, saw me, he smiled and said, "It's been a while. Glad to see you're doing well." Kyle was surprised to see that Jason knew me. But Kyle was about to be even more surprised. "My name is Henry, 33 years old. I'm currently employed at Thornton's, working as a dedicated driver for Kevin, one of the executives. Thornton's is a department store chain with locations across Japan and has expanded into major cities like Los Angeles and New York. Given that I work for a stable company, most people probably think I have a trouble-free life. However, my journey to my current position was anything but smooth. Every morning, I dress neatly, shine up a luxury car with wax, and head to Kevin's house. Standing in front of the intercom, I adjust my tie and press the button. Soon, Kevin's wife appears, greeting me warmly with, "Thank you always for your hard work." Eventually, a distinguished gentleman with well-groomed, slightly graying hair appears at the entrance. I bow deeply, open the rear door, and invite Kevin into the car. Quickly returning to the driver's seat, I gently press the gas pedal and start our usual morning routine. Of course, it wasn't my dream to be an executive's driver. In fact, I have quite an impressive academic background. I was born in Japan, but when I was 2, my family moved to the United States for my parents' work. We moved from state to state, so I was more comfortable with English than Japanese as a child. Though I was raised in a free-spirited environment, my parents enrolled me in a Japanese school. Thinking I might return to Japan someday and need to experience its academic rigor. I've always had the personality to look things up if I didn't understand, so studying was never a burden for me. In the end, my father was never transferred back to Japan, and I spent my whole childhood in the United States. With dreams of a career in business, I pursued a degree in economics at Harvard University. Student life at an American university is nothing like the laid-back experience at a Japanese university. Without intense studying, grades drop quickly, and it's easy to end up failing. So, for those 4 years, I didn't even work part-time, focusing solely on my studies, and ultimately graduated from Harvard with high honors. Everyone around me likely envisioned a bright future ahead. However, life has a way of unfolding in unexpected ways. After several ups and downs, I found myself back in Japan at 33, working as a driver for Kevin and employed by Thornton's. The car carrying Kevin slid smoothly into the underground parking at Thornton's headquarters. Every morning, 2 people stand at attention there, waiting. Kevin, as an executive at Thornton's, has 2 assistants. They are Kyle and Sophia. Apparently, Kevin values having both a male and female perspective to support his work effectively. As Kevin steps out of the car, they bow deeply and greet him with a polite good morning. The 3 of them then step into the elevator, heading up to the executive suite on the 8th floor. This is my moment to catch my breath. Stepping out of the car, I stretch and take a deep breath, gearing up for the day ahead. Though I'm just the driver for these 3, observing them can be rather entertaining. Kyle graduated from a well-known national university with a degree in English and is particularly useful when Kevin meets with foreign clients. Meanwhile, Sophia majored in social anthropology at a private women's college and struggles a bit with English. Although there is no official hierarchy between the 2, Kyle's overbearing personality makes him act as if he were Sophia's superior. He often sneers at Sophia, who graduated from a well-known women's college, saying things like, "This is why those privileged girls are hopeless." Having been trained intensively in English from a young age, Kyle has a strong admiration for people who grew up overseas. He holds a grudge against his circumstances, feeling that if his parents had had more money, he could have attended a university abroad. On the other hand, observing Sophia, it's clear she had few financial struggles, yet still faced her own issues. Since elementary school, she attended elite all-girls schools, yet often felt out of place around her classmates. She strongly resisted the idea that women should support men and be taken care of. Feeling like a bird in a cage, Sophia joined Thornton's with a strong desire to escape her strict parents. They held the outdated belief that marriage and homemaking were the best path for a woman, an idea Sophia fiercely resisted. One time, while it was just the 2 of us left in the car, Sophia shared her thoughts with me. "My parents have such outdated beliefs. They think a woman's place is to get married and stay at home. Well, I think it's just a mindset. The reason so many couples work these days is that it's hard to live on just one salary." "Oh, you're right. Thanks. I really need to stop letting it get to me, or Kyle will just mock me again." The 2 assistants don't get along in the slightest. Kevin and Sophia always sit together in the back seat, with Kyle riding in the passenger seat. Even this arrangement bothers Kyle, as he watches Kevin turn to Sophia for help with barely concealed bitterness. Kyle seems to see Sophia as an adversary, and he's constantly playing petty tricks on her. It's a regular occurrence for Kyle to shut the door just as Sophia is about to get in right after Kevin. He'll even hand her a pen for taking notes but deliberately give her one that's out of ink. Honestly, his antics are so childish that, as a fellow man, I feel embarrassed. Having spent so many years in the United States, I naturally developed a habit of acting with courtesy toward women. And I sympathize with Sophia's genuine outlook, so I've tried to support her whenever I can. Kyle clearly doesn't appreciate my efforts. His harassment of Sophia has only intensified, and I've grown increasingly concerned. Around this time, news surfaced of a potential partnership between Thornton's and the global department store chain, Mary's. It was a major event in Thornton's history, generating enough buzz to make it onto TV news. Jason, the president of Mary's, was coming to Japan, and Kyle and Sophia were busy preparing for the meeting. I kept a close eye on Kyle to see if he would pull one of his usual tricks on Sophia, but surprisingly, they were working more smoothly than ever. To be honest, since hearing the name Mary's, I'd barely had the capacity to keep an eye on Sophia. I have no idea how to express this feeling. People often say they have mixed feelings, and that sums it up perfectly. After all, I used to be an employee at Mary's. This American department store, which I thought I'd left behind, was suddenly right within reach. I also knew Jason, the president, quite well. I wasn't sure if he'd remember me. As long as I remained Kevin's driver, I wouldn't need to come face to face with the American president. It's not that I didn't want to see him, there are countless things I'd like to say. But part of me wanted things to stay peaceful, without stirring up the past. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Kevin and President Thornton were scheduled to visit the hotel room where Jason was staying. As usual, I waited for Kevin in the underground parking lot. Sophia and Kyle arrived ahead of him. The president would be heading directly to the hotel in a separate car. As the three of us waited by the car for Kevin, Kyle suddenly turned to Sophia and asked, "Sophia, you were in charge of the president's script, right? Can you show it to me?" "Oh, yes. I have it here in this envelope," she replied. "I just want to check something. You wouldn't understand the English anyway, so let me have a look." Sophia reached into her bag to retrieve the envelope. I glanced into the rearview mirror, wondering why it was taking so long, and saw Sophia frantically searching through the contents of the envelope. "Oh no, the president's script is missing. Could it be, did you lose it? If so, that's a serious problem. I'm sure I put it in here." Sitting in the passenger seat, Kyle smirked, glancing back at Sophia with a sly expression. It crossed my mind that Sophia might have been set up by Kyle. I knew all too well how painful it was to be undermined by someone you worked alongside. While I was debating how to handle the situation, Kevin appeared from the elevator. Seeing Sophia's distressed look, he asked, "What's going on?" "Sophia seems to have lost the president's script." "What should we do?" "It's entirely in English and contains everything related to the upcoming contract." "I see, so that's his game," I thought, understanding Kyle's intentions. I quickly realized Kyle's intention to leverage his English skills, step in as a savior, and boost his own standing. At this rate, Sophia would be left with all the blame, while Kyle would likely claim full credit for the deal's success. After a brief pause, Kevin spoke. "Then, instead of Sophia, Henry, I want you to come along." "What?" "Henry's just a driver. He's not someone we should bring to a negotiation with the president. I'll decide who to bring and who stays behind." With Kevin's firm response, Kyle momentarily swallowed his words, caught off guard. It was clear he had no idea what Kevin was thinking. Of course, that was to be expected. Kevin was the only one here who knew my true background. In the end, I was tasked to accompany Kevin and Kyle in Sophia's place. Sophia, looking apologetic, bowed her head to me and whispered, "Thank you." I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing she trusted me. Perhaps she suspected there was more to me than just being a driver. So, the four of us got into the car and headed to the hotel where Jason awaited us. In the car, Kyle contacted the president's assistant on his phone to report that the script had gone missing. He leaned back in the passenger seat with a smug, condescending smile on his face. "Not to worry, we're bringing along our secret weapon, Henry." Sophia sat there, looking down, clearly distressed. Certain this was Kyle's scheme, I felt a pang seeing her so downcast. With no way to prove Kyle's involvement, my only option was to ensure the meeting went smoothly. I pulled up at the hotel entrance, handed the keys to the valet, and we headed into the lobby. Sophia stayed behind in the car. With a mix of nerves, I clutched the materials Sophia had entrusted to me and followed Kevin. Walking beside me, Kyle wore a constant smirk, making me feel increasingly uncomfortable. He was clearly hoping I'd embarrass myself. If I, someone who had always stood by Sophia, made a mistake big enough to get fired, it would play right into Kyle's hands. In the elevator, with Kevin's permission, I started reviewing the documents. All in English. There's no way a mere driver could understand it. Kyle scoffed, letting out a dismissive laugh. Kevin shot him a sharp glare, then shifted his gaze to me and asked, "What do you think? Can you handle it?" "Yes. I've reviewed the main points and can approximate what the president needs to say. He can speak in Japanese. And I'll translate and add context as needed to keep things moving smoothly." "Excellent." As Kyle said, "You truly are our secret weapon." While Kyle scoffed beside us, we arrived at the suite. Jason had rented out the entire top floor, and a blonde assistant guided us to the room. I felt a surge of tension I hadn't experienced in years and clenched my fists tightly. The guide opened the door and invited us inside. The room was the hotel's most luxurious suite, complete with an expansive living area. It was furnished with high-end pieces, and the view from the windows was absolutely stunning. Only the president of a global powerhouse like Mary's would conduct a business meeting with such elegance. Mr. Thornton had already arrived with his male assistant and was gazing out the large window at the city skyline. Kevin offered a brief explanation for the delay, and the president nodded in understanding. After a short wait, a large, East Asian-looking man emerged from the back room. It was Jason, the president of Mary's. First, the president greeted him with a handshake, followed by Kevin. With a warm, approachable smile, Jason extended his hand to us assistants as well. Feeling a bit humbled, I reached out and shook his hand. Then, Jason's smile grew even brighter, and he spoke to me in fluent Japanese. "It's been a while, Henry. Glad to see you're doing well. It's been a long time. I'm glad to see you're well too." It feels strange to be speaking in Japanese like this. Yesterday, I visited my grandmother's grave. Japan really is a wonderful country. Especially since it's home to talents like you. Kyle was more than just surprised. He was utterly dumbfounded to see that Jason knew me. Sure, it would be shocking for anyone to hear someone refer to a mere driver as a talent. But Kyle was about to be even more surprised. Unable to hold back, he turned to me, his curiosity overriding his focus on the business meeting. "What's going on? Why are you so friendly with Mary's president? This has to be the first time you've met." "Actually, it's not our first meeting," I replied. "I once worked for Mary's. But I don't think this is the right time to discuss my history. Let's focus on the meeting." And so, we entered the main phase of the negotiation. With me acting as Mr. Thornton's interpreter and providing additional explanations for the content outlined in the documents. Kyle, watching me navigate the conversation with Jason so smoothly, was utterly taken aback. The reason I could speak so comfortably with Jason was that we had once worked together. After graduating from Harvard, I planned to build my career in the United States and joined Mary's sales division. I was with Mary's for about 5 years. I introduced unexpected ideas that drew in customers, achieving success after success. My supervisors took a strong liking to me, going so far as to call me a future executive candidate. Being young, I let the praise get to my head, becoming bolder and more visible in my actions. Since Jason, an Asian like me, was part of the executive team, I didn't feel any sense of inferiority about my heritage. But I was the only one who thought that way. Other employees, particularly those from Western backgrounds, saw things differently. One of my colleagues was a woman named Mia, who joined the company at the same time as I did. Mia was also a Harvard graduate, and from the start of our careers, people constantly compared us. Apparently, this comparison bothered Mia immensely. With her blonde hair and blue eyes, she was the quintessential Western beauty, and her looks had turned heads since our university days. In contrast, while I was tall and fit, my East Asian appearance had caused me to miss out on several major opportunities. However, my easygoing personality served me well, allowing me to thrive and steadily build a track record despite the strong biases present in American society. Then, one day, it was discovered that Mia had embezzled company funds. Shockingly, during the investigation, she claimed that I was her accomplice. I denied it vehemently and even considered hiring a lawyer, but the cold stares around me wore me down, and eventually, I gave in. I resigned from Mary's and returned to Japan. For a while, I couldn't bring myself to do anything. I had enough savings, so I rented a nice apartment for myself and spent my days watching movies on a subscription service from morning to night. Just as I was starting to think I couldn't go on like this, Kevin, a senior from Harvard, reached out to me after hearing about my situation. That's when my life took a major turn. Kevin didn't just give me a job as a driver. In reality, I was also tasked with observing the two executive assistants, Kyle and Sophia. According to Kevin, although both of them were essential to his work, they had a deeply antagonistic relationship that threatened to cause issues. He wanted me, as his driver, to keep an eye on them and make sure neither attempted to undermine the other. Since I was already ready to get out of my lazy routine, I accepted Kevin's proposal. Thornton's, a large department store chain expanding worldwide, seemed like a natural fit, especially with my experience at Mary's, another major department store. Starting the very next day, I began my work as a driver, observing Kyle and Sophia. As for the missing script today, it was Kyle's doing, an attempt to set Sophia up. I had cameras and microphones installed in the office, so there should be footage clearly showing him removing the script from the envelope. After wrapping up the successful meeting, I planned to retrieve the video evidence and show it to Kevin. That day's negotiation between Thornton's and Mary's was a huge success. The two companies would now establish a strong alliance and expand their presence globally. The agreement to open stores in developing countries, in particular, would significantly contribute to Thornton's growth. Everyone looked pleased, and seeing their satisfaction brought me a sense of pride as well. In the midst of this, Jason made an unexpected proposal. "Mr. Thornton, would you consider letting Henry return to our company? We bear responsibility for his wrongful dismissal due to poor oversight, and we'd like to make amends. In today's negotiations, Henry has proven to be an exceptionally skilled employee. Losing him would be a huge setback for us. I hope you understand. But he's currently working as an executive driver, isn't he? That role doesn't suit Henry. I'd like to give him greater responsibilities and a chance to rise within the company." I found myself torn between Jason and Mr. Thornton. Sensing my hesitation, Jason pressed further, attempting to sway me. "After thoroughly investigating the embezzlement case, it's been proven that you were innocent, Henry. Everyone wants to apologize for doubting you and hopes you'll return to work with us." I felt a sense of relief hearing that my innocence had been confirmed. Truthfully, a part of me did want to return to Mary's and restart my career there. However, I could also imagine that Thornton's, recognizing my contributions today, would likely offer me a new role beyond that of a driver. True, working in American society, Asians face many challenges, Jason continued. But I intend to change that from within. And I can assure you that no such prejudice would affect you at Mary's. Henry, please stay with us at Thornton's. Having seen your talents firsthand, it would be very painful to lose you to Mary's. We'll provide a role that reflects your skills. It had turned into a full-blown tug-of-war for my future. Kyle, sidelined from the discussion, had no opportunity to contribute. Choosing between Thornton's and Mary's was no easy decision, but I couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. Over time, as I observed her, I developed deep feelings for her. If I could have a fulfilling career at either company, I'd rather be near the person I cared about. It seemed Kevin had sensed my feelings, as he made a new proposal. "Henry, how about becoming our liaison with Mary's? I have no intention of letting your career end as an interpreter. I'll grant you the authority you need, and I want you to take charge of our dealings with Mary's." Kevin's offer would allow me to build a close relationship with Mary's while staying at Thornton's, which sounded like an ideal arrangement. I accepted his offer and shook his hand with gratitude. That afternoon, I arranged a private meeting and presented the video evidence to Kevin, showing Kyle's attempt to set up Sophia. "I've had my doubts about Kyle for a while now. Sophia may lack confidence, but she's meticulous and a pleasure to work with. Trying to sabotage her like that is a serious offense." Moreover, Kyle's actions had almost jeopardized the negotiation, making it something Mr. Thornton couldn't overlook. As a result, Mr. Thornton decided to dismiss Kyle. With Kyle gone, Sophia was promoted to be Kevin's chief assistant, while I took on the role of Mr. Thornton's assistant. Since Mr. Thornton and Kevin frequently worked together, Sophia and I ended up coordinating daily, spending much of the day together. Without Kyle's presence, Sophia gained confidence and tackled her work with a newfound boldness. As for Kyle, the dismissal marked his first real setback in a life of steady advancement. Word of his scheming against Sophia quickly spread to other major companies, making it nearly impossible for him to find work at a prestigious firm. With few options, he ended up teaching English at a language school. However, even there, he made a grave mistake. A hidden camera was discovered in one of the classrooms, and it was revealed that Kyle had installed it. Under police questioning, he confessed that he had developed an inappropriate attraction to a student and had acted on impulse. Fortunately, no one had been harmed, but he was charged and given a suspended sentence, leaving him with a criminal record. Unsurprisingly, he couldn't find a new job, and his life grew increasingly difficult. With no job and a criminal record, his wife eventually left him. She had managed their finances, and after she left, Kyle discovered she had squandered much of their savings. Despite having almost no money left, she demanded alimony. His record became known among the neighbors, and he faced constant judgment. To pay the alimony and escape the neighbors' scorn, he sold the house they had purchased. Moving to a new town, he tried to start over and spent his days searching for work. One day, in a moment of desperation, he shoplifted a can of mackerel from a supermarket. He was caught by store security and banned from the premises. The story of the former elite employee's downfall spread like wildfire and even reached my ears. Now, Kyle is reportedly spending lonely days working as a building janitor, the only job he managed to find. A year has passed since then. I confessed my feelings to Sophia, and we officially started dating. We've already met each other's parents. Sophia's parents are urging her to get married and settle down right away, but I want to approach this carefully. I don't want her to give up her career, and I want her to have every chance to grow as an individual. Sophia, who used to be prone to negative thoughts, now says that when she's with me, she feels she can be herself and fully unleash her potential. Right now, we're both exploring what choices would be best for our lives together. Do you understand the concept of living within your means? Oh wait, maybe that's too much for you. Just be grateful you were even allowed to join. If there aren't any seats, maybe you could pour drinks and butter up people. Ha ha. With that, the flashy woman, Mary, strutted off to join the larger crowd, seeming satisfied after saying her piece. Though I could only catch bits of her words, I couldn't ignore the woman at the corner table, looking down with her shoulders shaking slightly. Hey, are you okay? Did she say something to you? Why are you sitting all the way back here? No, it's fine. I guess it's just different in the big company. I mean, apparently there's no seat for someone like me, a high school grad. Gently placing a handkerchief in her hand, I made up my mind and headed from the edge of the banquet hall toward the crowded stage area, where everyone had gathered. There, I announced a startling truth that would leave Mary in shock. Clank! Phew, finally a break. But seriously, this vending machine still has the same lineup as 10 years ago. This coffee is a rare find these days. My name is Samuel Yates. I joined this company right after college. But I was sent to a branch office almost immediately and have been shuffled around affiliated companies since. Finally, in my 10th year, I've returned to the main office. I'm currently with the product development department, considered one of the company's most prestigious. I don't mind the heavy workload, but whoa, a sweetened canned coffee? That's rough. Oh, sorry, did everyone hear that? But you know, keeping up with health trends and all. Maybe you should look into that, old man. I mean, you lucked out landing here, right? Her name is Mary. A graduate of a top university, fluent in multiple languages, she's what they call an elite. With her polished makeup, stylishly curled hair, and form-fitting attire, she practically radiates confidence. Mary generally talks to me this way. But I'm not her true target. Good morning, Samuel, Mary. Good morning, Michelle. Whoa, you're carrying a lot today. The one juggling several shopping bags is Michelle. She is always smiling, kind-hearted, and hardworking. Though the company technically hires high school graduates, it's highly competitive as an industry leader. Having overcome that, I really admire Michelle, who's over a decade younger than me. Hey, a sweet cleaning lady I'm friendly with just gave me these as souvenirs from her trip. I was thinking of sharing them with everyone at the main desk. Hey, can you not? Ha! Ignoring the friendly greeting, Mary, sipping on some fancy smoothie, cut in loudly, causing the office to fall silent. She quieted everyone deliberately. Don't you get it? Souvenirs are totally outdated. And can you guarantee no one here has allergies? Plus, saying you got them from a cleaning lady is like saying, here, I picked these up off the street. And really, what are they? Some cheap-looking, sugary dumplings, so lame. I'm sorry. Good, as long as you get it. Oh, high school grad, be careful. Keep this up, and you'll end up just like the guy next to you. A second-rate college grad is no different, after all. She shot a smug glance around the office, as if declaring her opinion was everyone's consensus, and walked back to her desk with a laugh. Yes, Mary's real target is Michelle. She constantly brings up the fact that Michelle only has a high school diploma. With Mary at the top of our department, others follow her lead. That's the reality here. In some ways, my arrival may have made things worse. I felt a bit guilty about it, even if only for a short time. Michelle, mind if I take 2 boxes? Oh yes, 2 boxes? I took the bags of souvenirs from her and placed the boxes on the central desk. Both Michelle and Mary looked on in shock. These are souvenirs Michelle received, and she'd like to share them with the department, so I'm setting them out here. Hey, old man. I told you to cut it out, didn't I? These are from some random cleaning lady. People. Oh, I didn't explain properly. The friend Michelle mentioned is Amanda, who used to be the CEO's secretary here. She recently joined the cleaning team after her kids became independent. No way. I chat with her often, so I'm not making this up. And let me tell you, former executive secretaries have an incredible eye for quality gifts. We have Michelle to thank for this. Grab one while they last. I took one for myself and returned to my desk. Behind me, I could hear the lively sounds of everyone rushing to get one. Samuel. Sorry for acting on my own. Oh, and I already took one of these for myself. Took one? Samuel, you've already started eating it. Oh, busted. I really like these, but this seems not good anyway. Despite being told countless times to act with more authority, I knew this was where I fell short. I sighed and was about to take a sip of coffee. Michelle covered her mouth, trying to stifle a laugh, but ended up letting it out anyway, looking a bit apologetic. Sorry. Ha ha. I wanted to thank you, but you're just too funny, Samuel. Oh, that reminds me. The sadness from earlier was gone, and Michelle was back to her usual smiling self. Did I help even a little? To thank you, I'll bring you a homemade lunch tomorrow. You always seem busy, and I mostly see you with coffee. Would that be okay? Lunch? I can't remember the last time I had rice. I'll definitely bring one. The next day, Michelle actually brought a homemade lunch, which meant we'd be eating side by side, and I couldn't help but worry about what Mary might say if she saw us. But Mary, claiming something about a limited edition lunch, left early, leaving just the two of us in the office. Thank you again for yesterday. Here, enjoy. Wow, making something like this every day is impressive. I feel a bit guilty. I put in extra effort today as a thank you. I'm pretty confident in my cooking. How does it taste? It's delicious. Yay! My mom was often sick, so I cooked for my siblings from a young age. It feels great to be complimented by someone outside my family. I see. That must be why she chose to work right after high school. Thinking about what she'd been through, I found myself admiring Michelle as a truly wonderful person. From that day on, Michelle started bringing me lunch regularly. I tried to insist that she didn't have to, but she said making 2 lunches was no more trouble than one. Honestly, I was happy about it. Her cooking lunch gave me the strength to get through my hectic days. But most of all, I truly enjoyed spending time with Michelle, who made the age gap between us feel insignificant. In fact, even when I did notice the age difference, it was in a way that made our time together even more enjoyable. One day, Mary passed by, but she ignored us without her usual jabs. Thinking back, ever since the souvenir incident, Mary's snide remarks toward Michelle had virtually stopped. Samuel, have you prepared yet? Ha! For a meeting today? Ha ha! No, this. Michelle pulled up an IN's homepage on her computer. She'd bookmarked it, clearly excited. Oh, right, that's next week. I'd almost forgotten, but it was the company retreat. It should be fun. Yes. And thanks for lunch. The company retreat was a 2-night, 3-day trip, booked at a particularly nice inn. Right now, we're in the middle of a banquet there. I arrived a bit late, but as soon as I entered the banquet hall, my coworkers called me over to join them. It seemed like some of them wanted to talk since that incident with the souvenirs. Perhaps thanks to the alcohol, everyone was lively, and I thought that if I could build these connections, Michelle might find her work more enjoyable too. But Michelle was nowhere to be seen. And neither was Mary, who would normally be in the center of the crowd at a place like this. I had a bad feeling. Have you seen Michelle and Mary? Now that you mention it, they're not here. There are people from other departments, so I'm not sure. I think I saw them before the banquet. Though, I cut the conversation short and decided to search for Michelle. There were so many people around. Calling out her name wasn't an option. She might be chatting with friends from another department. If that's the case, that's fine, but I felt a strong need to find her. She was nowhere to be found. I raised my gaze to the far end of the hall. No way. My worst fears had come true. There, at the very edge of an unassigned table, Michelle was standing with her head down, while Mary leaned over her, saying something. I couldn't care less about proper etiquette. I rushed toward them. Do you even understand what living within your means means? Oh, right, maybe that's too advanced for someone like you. Just be grateful you were allowed to join. No seat? Then why don't you pour drinks and flatter people? That's so. What's going on here? Oh, well, if it isn't Mr. Old Timer. I thought you weren't coming. Don't worry, we've got your seat ready. I don't follow, Mary. Mary gave a satisfied smile and walked off to rejoin the crowd. Though I'd only caught fragments of what was said, I couldn't ignore Michelle, who was standing at the corner of the table, head lowered, her shoulders trembling slightly. What happened? Did she say something to you? Why are you sitting all the way out here? No, it's nothing. I guess things really are different in the big company. For someone like me, a high school grad, it seems there's no seat here. Mary was in charge of organizing the event. I see. So that's why she held back until now. She was planning this all along. I gently placed a handkerchief in Michelle's hand and helped her sit down. Resolving myself, I made a phone call, then headed from the edge of the banquet hall toward the crowded stage area. I wasn't sure if this would help Michelle. I shouldn't let personal feelings get in the way in the first place. But a company where kind people are forced to endure unfair treatment isn't a place I can believe in. Rattle. Wait, is that Edward and the Vice President, Mr. Hughes? What are they doing at the banquet? The room buzzed for a moment, but the head of HR, Edward, took the microphone, and silence fell over the crowd. Apologies for interrupting the banquet. This announcement was actually scheduled for tomorrow, but, well, here we are. Sorry for the sudden news. But we have a personnel announcement to make. Everyone looked stunned as Mr. Hughes took over. This was originally going to be a press announcement, but our president decided it would be more fun to do it here with everyone. The company was well known for the Yates brothers, our spirited president and sharp-eyed vice president, Mr. Hughes. That sharp gaze was now directed at one part of the room. Let's get right to it. Mr. Yates will retire and take on the role of chairman, and a new president will take his place. Mr. Yates, if you're moving up the schedule, we'll need a proper inaugural speech. No way. The room was still stunned, but a stifled gasp escaped from our product development department. At the far end of the hall, Michelle was clutching her handkerchief, her eyes wide with shock. Samuel. Everyone, sorry to interrupt your lively banquet. As of the 1st of next month, I will be assuming the role of company president. I'm Samuel Yates. I bowed, prompting a round of hesitant applause. Sighing, I thought to myself that while my 10 years of field experience had been valuable, I might have needed more practice with speeches like these. Formality doesn't suit me well, I suppose. Well, as you know, our company has grown from humble beginnings, expanded through generations, and adapted to the times. Thanks to the strong bond we have with our employees. Do not create people who cannot be happy. This is the belief passed down from our founder, encompassing all those connected to our company. I intend to uphold this legacy. After a round of applause, I looked over at Michelle. She had her handkerchief pressed to her mouth, her eyes even wider as she looked at me. As much as I wanted to go to her, I knew it wasn't the time. Instead, I mouthed the words to her, hoping she would understand. Later. Once the banquet was over and everyone had returned to their rooms, I sat down in the deserted courtyard. Thinking back, I realized I hadn't told her where to meet. Maybe it didn't work out. Hey, you! Just as I started to gaze at the moon, lost in thought, someone smacked my shoulder from behind, more like practically knocked me off balance. Michelle. Honestly. I've been looking all over for you. Just saying later isn't exactly clear, you know? Right, good point. Michelle, adjusting her slightly rumpled clothes, sat down beside me. She must have searched everywhere. Feeling a bit guilty, I was also a little flustered by her different look tonight, her hair down and more relaxed. Here, coffee. Wait, you bought this for me? Oh, thank you. When I think of you, I think of coffee. Today, I'll join you. We both opened cans of coffee, different from the usual kind. I wasn't sure where to start. But somehow, sitting next to Michelle, under a different night sky, felt perfectly natural. So, you're the president, huh? I never thought it was worth mentioning, but I guess I surprised you. It actually makes sense. What? Her words caught me off guard. What part? What did she mean? I was just doing my job as usual, getting teased for being the old guy and all. Was there something off about me? To me, yes. Completely. You're really, truly, a wonderful person. What? Wonderful. I blurted out, and Michelle looked at me with a warm smile. Was it the moonlight or her different look? She had a different charm tonight. There was a captivating elegance to her beauty. I thought you were quiet, but you easily stepped in to help someone like me. You always lend a hand before I get overwhelmed. And when I do a good job, you make sure to praise me. Ha! The one time you patted my head, I was so embarrassed I had to run away. So she had been embarrassed. That night, I couldn't sleep after patting her head, just because I'd been so happy I'd done it on impulse. I guess I was really lucky to have you around. What? Oh, nothing. Anyway, if the president catches a cold, it'll be trouble. Let's head back. As Michelle stood up quickly, she wobbled, and I instinctively caught her. Sorry, my flip-flop strap. Are you okay? Take a seat and relax. Hey, Samuel. I can do it myself. I gently guided Michelle back down and kneeled in front of her. I took off her flip-flop and adjusted the strap. I was usually good at fixing things like this. This design was simple enough that it was easy to adjust. Right, but I couldn't help but notice Michelle's feet. I tried to focus solely on the flip-flop, but suddenly, my fingers started to fumble, thrown off by a surge of nerves. All done. Can you try them now, Michelle? No response from Michelle. Maybe she thought I was creepy after all. I probably didn't even need to squat down in front of her like that. I'd acted hastily. Could you put them on for me? What? I couldn't believe my ears. My feet fell asleep. Could you help me put them on, Samuel? Okay. I gently lifted her foot, carefully slipping the strap between her toes so it wouldn't catch. Hey, it tickles. The soft, breathy tone of her voice made my heart race. It was a relief that the moon had hidden itself. I was probably making the most ridiculous face right now. When I stole a quick glance at her face, I thought I saw a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I ended up spending a sleepless night after that. With the sudden schedule change and the prep meeting for the press conference, the team from HQ had me up and running from the morning. Seth, can I have a quick break? What? After all the accommodations I've made for you? You're following my lead for a while now. Oh, and it's Mr. Hughes. Unable to match his intense gaze, my company retreat came to an end, and my new life began. Clank. When I joined, when I came back, and now, every turning point seems to happen with a coffee from this vending machine. What are you standing there daydreaming about, our new president, Mr. Yates? Ouch. Madam, that hurts. When I arrived at work and bought my usual coffee from the vending machine, there she was, the madam, elegantly wearing her work uniform. This madam was none other than Amanda, the lady who'd brought the sugary dumplings. She'd known me since I was a kid, so honestly, I couldn't talk back to her even if I tried. So, why are you in the product development department? The press conference is over, isn't it? I still have a few projects to wrap up, along with the handover. I'll be balancing both roles for the rest of the month. Another 2 weeks. Still the same as always, huh? You might want to find yourself a wife while you're at it. Ha! That might have been the loudest I've spoken since becoming an adult. Both my dad and my uncle have told me that if things keep going this way, they'll set up an arranged marriage for me. Honestly, I'd like to avoid that. I'm not interested. Anyway, time to get back to work. I hurried back to the office. I would have liked to take my time, but that wasn't an option. As expected, my environment had changed drastically. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Yates." "Oh, you're sweating, let me get you a handkerchief." "Morning, Mary." "No, really, I'm fine. I'm so thrilled to hear that you'll be staying in this department until the end of the month. Working with you is truly a dream come true. I'm so grateful to be at this company, and you're so dashing as our new president." "Don't you think?" When my uncle arranged for me to work at various branches and subsidiaries, he was adamant that no one mention my role as the next president. I didn't mind one way or the other, so I followed his instructions. It's not as though Yates is an uncommon name, and no one connected me with the president. Only now did I fully understand why he'd insisted on that. It was astonishing how much people could change. "Mr. Yates, how about dinner together before you leave this department?" "Good morning." I heard the sound of a chair sliding back from the adjacent desk and a quieter than usual greeting. "Oh. Can't you take a hint, high school grad?" "Good morning, Michelle." "Mary, let's get to work. Time just flies when I'm chatting with you, Mr. Yates." "I'll be back again soon." Seeing Michelle again for the first time since the company retreat. I couldn't help feeling a bit nervous. I wondered if she was really okay after everything that happened. Would it be awkward to bring it up? "Michelle." "Oh, should I start calling you Mr. Yates too?" "I'd rather you keep calling me the way you always have." "Oh, thank goodness." I was really worried about what to do. "Okay, let's have a great day, Samuel." There were still some people who hadn't changed. I felt a deep sense of relief that Michelle was one of them. Even though everything else had changed, some things remained the same. Michelle had brought me lunch again today. I felt a little embarrassed realizing I'd bought an unsweetened coffee, hoping she would. "Wow, this looks amazing, so lavish." "Yes. I put extra effort into it as a thank you." "A thank you?" We both paused, our chopsticks frozen midair. Memories of that day came rushing back. Was my face turning red? "Thank you for what you did at the company retreat. I never properly thanked you. It meant a lot that you came over to check on me. I was feeling pretty low. All I did was show up. I couldn't really do anything. No, just having you there made all the difference. If I'd been able to help her in any way, I was truly glad." Still, even though her words made me happy, I couldn't shake an odd feeling of unease. Maybe it was because she took out that handkerchief from her bag, her eyes welling up with tears. "Here, I'm returning your handkerchief. And today's lunch is the last one." "Oh, okay." I put all my gratitude into this one, as well as thanks for everything up until now. "Just leave the empty box on your desk when you're done. I have a conference room to set up." The words I wanted to say were stuck, unable to come out. Too many thoughts were getting in the way. Was it because I was becoming the president? Or the age difference? She gave me that radiant smile this morning, and now it felt like it was slipping away. "Thank you for everything. I enjoyed lunch with you. In these 10 years, I'd been to countless places, meeting people and parting ways. At times, it felt lonely, but my mind would quickly shift to preparing for my next post. It had become second nature. 10 years is a long time. And yet, this bond, this brief time we shared, was ending so easily, leaving me unexpectedly shaken. What words was I searching for? What was I thinking? I finished my work in the development department earlier than planned and fully transitioned to my role as president. This should do. Some employees may end up in unexpected positions, but based on my interviews with Stephen, they have high potential. They'll have strong mentors as well. This is how we'll proceed. Are you sure about this? announcing that the final decision on personnel changes came directly from Mr. Yates. I've had experience with most roles here, so I'm confident in assessing resilience. Besides, I'd rather take on the tough decisions right at the start. For my first major task as president, I chose to implement a large-scale personnel reshuffle. Thankfully, most people supported it, and I aimed to create an environment where everyone could maximize their potential. But I knew it wouldn't be that simple. There would undoubtedly be objections. I was prepared to face those as well. Especially from the product development department, despite Stephen, the department head, being on board. There would likely be some resentment directed my way. I was genuinely surprised when I heard the news. Is that really true, Stephen? Apparently, after speaking with other employees, Stephen discovered that Mary had been taking credit for Michelle's accomplishments. It was, in essence, a case of stealing her work. Since I'd been around and mostly tied to my desk, Mary had escalated her passive-aggressive remarks and increased her attacks. Stephen felt strongly about ensuring Michelle's talents weren't overlooked. Mary, who had previous experience in sales, was transferred to another department. I was sure I'd be resented for this. But if it meant Michelle could work freely and confidently, that was all that mattered to me. Busy days continued. While I still got coffee delivered to me, my lunches had turned into having meetings over lunch. At the very least, I wanted to grab one of those usual cans of coffee. And those homemade lunches. Clank. Samuel. You holding up as president? Will you ever learn to knock, Mr. Yates? Look at you, talking back to your father when I came to give you praise. He was definitely just bored. Or maybe he'd run out of ideas and came by to take a break. I heard the personnel changes are going well, especially in the product development department. There's that girl. She was one of our few hires without a college degree. I even interviewed her myself. It's wonderful to see how much she's grown. What? Now that I think about it, Mr. Hughes did mention something like that. I must have brushed it off, too busy to pay attention. It must be about Michelle. I wanted to congratulate her if her desk was right next to me. I wanted to tell her I was proud, or joke that I'd make her a lunch to celebrate. Samuel. Yes? Can you really make her happy? And here I was. The product development floor. It's rare for a president to come down just to meet with one employee. I knew that, but even if it was a brief time, I worked here too. I could keep it casual. Stay calm and relax. I hope I'm not intruding. Wait, what? Not a single person was at their desk. I glanced at the whiteboard. It was marked for an all-hands meeting. Relief washed over me, and my shoulders dropped, along with my president mask. I bought a can of coffee from the vending machine, slumping into a nearby chair. What am I even doing? Huh? What? As I turned around, startled, there stood Michelle. I quickly sat up straight, pretending nothing had happened, but Michelle's amused smile made my mind go blank. Mr. Yates, what brings you here? Oh, right. I'm the president now. I really am the president. I just felt like having one of these coffees. So, how have you been? I hear you've been doing an incredible job. Actually, I'm still a work in progress. With all the studying for certifications, I'm just barely managing. And, well, I'm on standby. So I should head back to my desk now. Excuse me. It's not about the coffee. Ha! When Michelle called me Mr. Yates, it threw me off balance. She was right here, yet it felt like she was somewhere far away. I could feel her trying to put distance between us, and I didn't want a repeat of that last time when things were left unsaid. I just wanted to congratulate you. I'm really proud to see all your hard work being recognized. Just one more step, remember what my father told me. To make sure I could create happiness in my life. Are you free tonight? There's this famous Italian restaurant. When you showed me that inn's website, I noticed you had it bookmarked. I thought maybe you wanted to go. How about it? I looked her straight in the eyes, determined not to look away as I spoke. To anyone else, this must have been quite a sight. Michelle looked down. I'd seen her bow her head like this a few times before. Sometimes it was when she was crying, and other times when she was laughing uncontrollably. Thank you for inviting me. I'd be happy to join you. She kept her head down, but she agreed. We formally exchanged contact information and parted ways with a slight bow. Looking back, we'd never even exchanged numbers because seeing each other every day felt so natural. What do I want to say to her tonight? I have a reservation under Samuel. Arriving a little early, I kept running through how I'd start the conversation. It should have been simple, like when we'd eat lunch together, but it wasn't coming easily. This place was even trendier than I'd imagined. Though I'd invited her, I was a bit nervous about actually getting a reservation. But Madam, who had seen the whole thing unfold, stepped in. In no time, she'd made the reservation. Then she gave me a solid smack on the back, saying, "Show her what you're made of." She still hasn't read the message. If Michelle were going to cancel, she'd definitely let me know. That's just the kind of person she is. Even if she was running late, I knew she'd let me know. Just to be sure, I told the staff I'd step out to look around for a moment. Maybe that image of her as always reliable was something I'd built up in my head. After all, she hadn't seemed that enthusiastic. But I chose to trust the Michelle I'd come to know so well. Which meant, something might have happened. Something that could be stopping her from contacting me. Wandering around aimlessly wouldn't help. If she walked here from the station, I'd start by retracing that path. The area was already pitch dark. Even though it was near the office district, there were plenty of side streets and risky spots. When I was trying to shake off the unsettling thoughts, "Stop, let me go." From a dark side street, I heard a muffled voice. "Michelle. Damn it. You said we wouldn't get caught here." A group of masked men had surrounded Michelle, one of them covering her mouth with his hand. Michelle was crying, struggling in their grasp. "Hey! What do we do about this guy? Fine, right?" I heard this guy's loaded. "All right, then." One of them swung a bat in one hand, clearly intending to come my way. "You're not just passing through, are you? This has nothing to do with you, old man. Move. Michelle. Don't worry, I'll get you out of this." At that moment, one of the men threw a punch to my stomach. "Hey! What? Believe it or not, I'm a company president. So I'll be exercising my right to self-defense from here." Basic self-defense skills may seem simple, but they're no joke. When backed by solid training, brute force doesn't stand a chance. The others froze as soon as I took down the first guy, making it easy to put the rest of them out one by one. "Hey, old man. What are you gonna do if something happens to this chick? Ow. She bit me. Samuel. Nicely done, Michelle." After dealing with the last guy, I hurried over to Michelle. It seemed she hadn't been hurt. I placed my jacket over her shoulders and gently wiped away her tears with a handkerchief. "Michelle, are you okay?" "Samuel. I was so scared." "It's all right now. I'm here. You're safe." I placed the handkerchief in her hand and slowly turned around. Maybe this was all my fault. I was prepared to be resented. But I had underestimated the situation. I'd overlooked the fact that sometimes pride can blind people completely. No way. Michelle seemed unable to grasp what was happening. Of course, she couldn't. Is that what they call the art of kingship? Even your self-defense skills are impeccable, Mr. Yates. Was the sales department really so unbearable, Mary? Are these guys friends of yours? Just some idiots I found online. Illuminated by the occasional headlights of passing cars, Mary stood there in her perfectly styled makeup, a fitted suit, and her short hair blowing in the breeze. Mary, this can't be real, right? Just because you don't like me, you do something like this. This kind of thing? You said this kind of thing? Don't you get it? I hate you so much it makes me want to do this. Ah. You wouldn't understand, right? Just a high school grad, so you wouldn't know. You're just lucky, just young and cute. You'd never understand my struggles. This wasn't her usual sarcasm. With eyes wide and voice almost like a curse, Mary continued. I wanted to be in the product development department. That's why I worked so hard in sales, did everything I could, and finally won the transfer. But then, you came along. Being a high school grad, you needed everyone's help, got praised for just doing the basics, and on top of it all, got assigned to a project team before me. A high school grad like you. Her breathing was heavy, her words echoing in the darkness. And in that moment, I realized I was clenching my own lips tightly. But the words were already spilling out of my mouth. Enough! Both Mary and Michelle flinched at my shout, but I couldn't stop now. Mary, what have you even been looking at when it comes to Michelle? Did you see her just sitting around, or simply trying to charm people? She came in early, stayed late, and earned her certifications, doing everything she could to get up to speed. She's still working to improve her skills. Everyone noticed, and that's why people were drawn to her because they recognized her hard work. So what? She's still a worthless high school grad. Why should I have to lose to someone like her? You didn't lose to Michelle. You lost to your own pride. You became so fixated on being the elite that you blinded yourself. You couldn't stand stumbling in the place you once admired, so you clung to your one advantage, your education, to demean Michelle and shield your pride. But that's not strength. Just as I was saying all this, Michelle tugged on my arm from behind. Let me say something, Samuel. Without saying a word, I offered Michelle my shoulder and took a small step back. Her tears had dried, and she was looking at Mary with a sharp, determined gaze. Oh. If you're calling the police, get on with it. Seems like those punks ran off without anyone noticing. I don't like you, either, Mary. Honestly, I'd be creeped out if you did. Yes. But I used to like you. I almost blurted out, what, in surprise. Mary seemed just as stunned, her face momentarily frozen in shock. I remember, on the day of my interview, I was so nervous. In my high school uniform, I felt everyone staring at me, and I kept worrying that I'd fail. I felt awful. But then someone spoke to me, saying, just smile, you'll be fine. You only said it in passing, but you looked so confident, so elegant. You were the kind of strong, beautiful adult woman I admired. I see. But it seems that person isn't around anymore. Mary, you must know where she went, don't you? What's your point? Michelle straightened her back, glaring at Mary with newfound determination. I want to meet that person I looked up to again. So, Mary, challenge me. I'll win, and no matter what, I'll find her again. I'm sure I'll beat you now. Beating you will be easy. The silence was absolute. I could no longer see Mary's expression. I couldn't see Michelle's face either, but I could tell she was standing her ground with everything she had. Arrogant women are such a pain. Mary muttered softly. Without another glance back, she walked away. As soon as she was out of sight, Michelle collapsed. Michelle! I caught her in my arms, finally able to see her face. She had a look that was both sad and resolute, but there was also a smile. I guess I really did declare a war there. Samuel, I'm starving. Do you realize you just shaved years off my life? Oh, Samuel, you're strong. I thought you were really cool, she said with a grin, her usual bright smile back. I was so relieved that I hadn't lost her and that she was still here, calling me Samuel with that same warmth. Without realizing it, I tightened my grip around her. Thank you, Samuel. Even as president, even with so much distance between us, you still came to help me. I thought I was just another employee to you. That's not true at all. Ha! If that were the case, I wouldn't have gotten so nervous just going to buy a can of coffee. Laughing, I made sure to take her to the hospital just in case. As soon as she got into the taxi, Michelle drifted off to sleep, her head resting against my shoulder. I couldn't blame her after everything that had happened. She must have been exhausted. Hearing her say Samuel with a smile, seeing her peaceful face asleep on my shoulder, I knew I wanted to protect her from now on, no matter what. The weight that had been hanging over my heart felt as if it was finally lifting. The southern sky was beginning to brighten. 6 months later. The months had flown by as I went on back-to-back overseas trips. I'd been back for 3 days now, and I was still buried in follow-up documents. I was starting to realize just how impressive my father really was. As for the company, things were going smoothly, at least for now. The product development department's results were impressive. Projects aimed at international markets from the start were also progressing well. A strong new hire with international experience had joined the sales department, which made a big difference. They were collaborating seamlessly. Michelle's chance to meet the person she admired was surely drawing close. As for me, I'd gotten more used to being called Mr. Yates, though I couldn't say if I'd gained any real sense of authority. Because right now, all I wanted was my usual can of coffee. Taking breaks is part of the job. Muttering this self-made motto, I dodged sharp glances from others and headed toward my usual vending machine. I hadn't seen Michelle since that day. It felt ridiculous that, after swearing to protect her, I hadn't been able to follow through. What would I say if I saw her now? No, I had to admit it, the coffee was just an excuse. I needed to accept that I genuinely wanted to see her. Thud. Oh, sorry. Sorry, huh? Acting like a proper president, I see. Lost in thought, I'd walked right into someone. It was Madame Amanda. Wait, where was the vending machine? Oh, that machine? We moved it. The baby president here kept drinking coffee from it, so it's now up on the executive floor. Didn't you notice? I'll be heading back, then. My excuse was officially gone. I'd even been considering asking her to dinner if I happened to see her here. This isn't working. The whole approach is wrong. I can go ahead and risk everything, even if it means crashing and burning. The weight that was holding me back has lifted. Now, it's up to her. Samuel, Mr. Yates. Michelle? There she was, standing by the vending machine with our usual can of coffee in hand. Since you left our department, this coffee has become something of a routine for me. Then today, Madam told me it had been moved here. I was speechless. I don't know, but drinking this makes me feel ready to give my all. Maybe, it's like my version of Samuel now? Oh, that sounds weird, doesn't it? It really does sound weird. Ha ha. I walked up to her, took the can gently from her hand, and said, "For me, this coffee was just an excuse to see you. Sure, I liked the coffee, but without the chance to meet you, it just lost its meaning. And now, I don't know what to do. I have an excuse now, too. I'll come here for lunch to get a coffee every day. Maybe I'll even bring a lunch." It was time to be the kind of man who could make her happy, even if it had taken half a year to get here. Even if I'm just an older guy. I'll do my best to make you happy. I've been happy ever since that day you made me laugh. With tears in her eyes and a radiant smile, I wrapped her in an embrace, and we bought another coffee together. To be honest, I don't remember what we talked about. It felt just like those times we'd spent together at lunch, simple, ordinary, and incredibly happy. Ha! Now that's a legendary secretary. Who else could pull off matchmaking with a vending machine? Oomph. It's all for the company. Work isn't something you do alone, you know? Even if someone at the top stands alone, they can't be alone at heart. Wait a minute, are you saying you set it up so I'd meet my wife? Now, back to cleaning. Why do we work? This may be an eternal question we're all tasked with answering. For family, for pride, for retirement, or just to get through today, there's no wrong answer, so there's no single answer. For me, it's always been for the employees, no questions asked. But now, I have a new reason, it's for family. I'm sure that as time goes on, there will be even more reasons. Some may be painful, too. But I want to think of each reason as part of my happiness. Because gaining more reasons to keep going means I'm living life earnestly. I'll be leaving and taking half of the staff with me. Envelopes scattered down in front of me. Each envelope read, resignation letter. Half. That means Derek must have thrown down 30 resignation letters. Nearly half of the employees leaving this company is a serious issue. It seems like karma finally caught up with you for deceiving us. You ignored my advice. And it turns out your father was just as bad of a CEO as I thought. Maybe his passing was just the consequence he deserved. Anyway, we'll be leaving this company. The sheer cruelty of his words left me in shock. I thought I had been taking Derek's concerns seriously all this time, but it seems nothing got through to him. Now indifferent to him and the others, I turned my back with a casual reply. Go right ahead. Huh? Did he really think I'd try to stop him? Derek's surprised voice reached my ears. They'll regret leaving my company soon enough. My name is Kirk. I just turned 40, and I recently took on the role of head of the General Affairs Department at a food processing company. Whether it was nepotism or not, my father, Sam, the CEO, told me it was about time I took on a managerial role. He's turning 60 this year, but he looks older than his age. Perhaps it's because he's carried the weight of responsibility for so long, but he seems tired these days. He suddenly assigned me the position of department head, which came as a complete surprise to me. I'd been working as an ordinary employee until now, so I had no idea how to manage a team. But knowing my father trusted me to handle the job, I put my all into it. This is the kind of conversation we often have. I'm planning to hand over the company to you someday. But it wouldn't be fair to make you CEO right away, so let's start with department head. I know you can handle it. Dad, I appreciate the confidence, but I'm already swamped with department head responsibilities. I'm not sure I could handle being CEO. You'll be fine. You have plenty of dependable allies by your side. Due to fatigue, my father began making mistakes on the job, and the company's reputation suffered, which gradually led to a decline in business. At that difficult time, it was Foster Foods who extended a helping hand. Their CEO, who owed my father a favor, continued to do business with us at a discount. When the deal between our companies was made, I heard it went something like this. Many years ago, when my company was on the verge of collapsing, your father helped us out. I'm just paying back that kindness. Thank you very much. You've truly saved us. Thanks to Foster Foods' support, my father's company avoided bankruptcy. With so many other partners halting their business with us, I was overwhelmed with gratitude for Foster Foods' help. On top of that, I married Molly, the daughter of the Foster Foods CEO, thanks to a certain connection. Since then, she supported me both personally and professionally. Given my busy days as a department head, her support was invaluable, especially as I tended to neglect my personal life. Though our marriage was based on mutual benefit, Molly and I got along well, and my days felt full and rewarding. One day, feeling a tinge of worry, I asked her, "We ended up in a marriage without love, are you really okay with that?" She looked slightly surprised, then smiled gently. "There's no problem at all." I'd been struggling with a stalker, so this marriage was a godsend. Besides, I enjoy my time with you. Knowing she felt genuine affection toward me gave me a deep sense of relief. 1 year later, in the spring. That day marked the arrival of new hires at our company. Several were joining our department, and as their manager, I needed to guide them properly. Most of them were fresh out of school and inexperienced, so it was likely that they still had much to learn. My responsibility was to ensure they could fully demonstrate their abilities and avoid any missteps. Well, I'm heading out. Take care, and good luck. Oh, and if there's a call at home about the restaurant, could you send me an email on my work phone? I sent my personal phone in for repairs. So they might not know about the temporary number. Got it. The message I mentioned wasn't work-related, but a personal matter that I usually handle through my private phone. Since it was out for repair, I figured they'd likely call the home phone instead. I was a bit worried Molly might forget and call my personal number out of habit. With a final word to Molly, I headed out. I arrived at the office early to prepare as a department head. By around 8 a.m., the new hires started to arrive. We'd already met during the orientation, but I still felt a little nervous. Good morning. Our company's future rests on your shoulders, so let's work together from today on. Yes, absolutely. The new employees responded enthusiastically, showing great energy. Among them, one person stood out to me. With me here, I'll make this company number one. I'm ready to give my all and contribute, so let's get to it. The confident new hire's name was Derek. He is a man in his 20s, raised as the only son in a prestigious family of high achievers. He performed exceptionally well in the company entrance exam, so there are high expectations for him, but there is also some concern. Confidence in oneself is generally a good thing, but he tends to be somewhat arrogant compared to others. He often looks down on others and sometimes imposes his opinions on them. In group work during the interview process, his tendency for dominance had been quite evident. He had been hired nonetheless, based on his strong potential, according to the interview panel. But I worried he might clash with others, something that didn't take long to happen. When assigned to organize some data, Derek promptly remarked, "This is such an outdated method. I'll come up with an efficient way to do this that'll help us get through the work faster." Naturally, his comment irritated the experienced employee guiding him. I stepped in to smooth things over, but the prospect of this happening repeatedly left me with a heavy feeling. I resolved to keep a close watch on him to ensure he didn't stray down the wrong path. About 30 new employees joined the company this year. With our recent growth, our workforce had nearly doubled. 5 of the new hires were assigned to my department, and they all had somewhat strong personalities. They were bright and outspoken, but Derek tended to be overly confident and impulsive, while the other 4 had a tendency to stubbornly cling to their own ideas. Once they decided something was right, they'd stick with it, so I had to be careful when teaching them the ropes. After all, if they picked up the wrong habits, it'd be tough to correct them later. Some employees are simply more challenging to train. Though I've only been in this role for a year, I can't help but respect the other department heads who deal with this every day. This method is actually better in this case. It may seem cumbersome at first, but it's reliable. Really? To me, it feels like a waste of time. I think my way would be more efficient. I feel like Derek and I have this kind of conversation constantly. Derek, with his sharp mind, always comes up with methods that cater to highly skilled workers. But not everyone operates that way, the standard methods exist for a reason. However, no matter how much I explained, Derek seemed unwilling to listen, and his gaze grew colder with each passing day. The constant strain from this situation wore on me mentally, even if I wasn't physically exhausted. It became apparent enough that even Molly noticed my fatigue. "It seems like you've had a rough day." Molly greeted me at the door, offering a sympathetic smile as she noticed the exhaustion on my face. Before we got married, Molly had worked as the daughter of a company president. But now she took care of everything at home as a full-time homemaker. After enjoying the meal she had prepared, I shared with her the events that had taken place during the day. Molly, who had been listening quietly, suddenly remarked, "Come to think of it," as she recalled something from the past. "When I was working, there was a manager who stalked me, and he had the same last name. He had a son named Derek, if I remember correctly." "Really?" I was surprised to hear her mention someone with the same name as Derek, the new hire in my department. Looking uneasy, Molly rubbed her arms and continued. "He was relentless. I even lied about having someone I liked, but he kept asking me out. Some might say he was determined, but in reality, he was just stubborn. I wonder if Derek's the same way. It's hard to say if they're the same person, but Derek sure is stubborn. He rarely budges on his opinions. And it's exhausting dealing with him every day." Not knowing how to handle Derek's challenging personality, I felt overwhelmed. Perhaps noticing my frustration, Molly gently changed the subject. "By the way, how's the restaurant you're helping out on your days off?" She was referring to the place I'd been assisting temporarily. "It seems things are finally getting back on track. They should be hiring new staff within a few days." "That's a relief. I had been helping out at a friend's restaurant on my days off. Several of their employees had come down with a bad flu, leaving them severely understaffed. Though busy with my own job, I stepped in because my friend was in a real bind. Kindness always finds its way back to you. One day, someone will surely help your company in return." Molly gave me a warm smile as she cleared the dishes. Her words about kindness reminded me of Foster Foods, the company that had once helped my father's business. A bit of empathy can go a long way in saving someone during difficult times. Thinking about this, I felt the stress from my day gradually start to lift. Incidentally, a few days later, I learned from Derek that his father worked at Foster Foods. Apparently, his father was in the same department Molly had mentioned, confirming that her story about the stalker was indeed true. Derek seemed unaware of this part of his father's past, though. After talking to Molly, I decided to keep a closer eye on Derek's behavior. He often opposed my methods, but he seemed to get along with the other employees. However, he frequently criticized me to the new hires. "Kirk's methods are such a hassle. Can you believe we're stuck with him as our manager? My way would obviously work better than these outdated techniques." "Yeah, you're totally right, Derek. Can't believe Kirk won't acknowledge Derek's methods, he's just narrow-minded." Derek had been rallying the new employees, pointing out what he considered to be my flaws. He even complained to my father, the CEO. "The head of our department is awful. You've got to hear this. You seem to have a lot to say about my son lately." "More complaints, I take it?" "Yes, he never listens to my ideas." Because of that, I ended up causing trouble for my father. When he called out of concern, I was filled with a deep sense of guilt. Derek's problematic behavior will likely need to be addressed as soon as possible. At the time, I was prepared to let things go if Derek was willing to apologize. Everyone makes mistakes. I didn't want to be the kind of manager who dismisses someone without giving them a chance to improve. But then, a few months after the new hires joined, an incident occurred. It was during lunch break. Unexpectedly, Molly visited the office. Braving the summer heat, she had come to check on me, knowing I'd been extremely busy lately. "Here, I brought you some ice cream. I remember you like mint chocolate chip, right? I got 10, so please share them with the team." "Thank you. This really helps. But are you sure you're okay?" "I had something to eat at the cafe, so I'm fine." "Still, it must have been tiring. You should cool off here in the office a bit before heading back. The distance from home to the office isn't exactly close." Without a car, Molly likely took public transportation. Looking closer, I noticed she was sweating. I guided her to an empty conference room, intending to put the ice cream in the freezer. Just as I was about to leave, Molly's phone rang. "Oh, it's from your family. I wonder why they'd call my phone. Puzzled, Molly answered the call. Not wanting to interrupt, I quietly stepped out of the room. About 30 new employees came shuffling in. Leading the group at the front was Derek. Out of nowhere, he hurled an accusation at me. "Kirk, we can't work here any longer." "What?" The shock of his words left me speechless. I hadn't even had time to pick up the box of ice cream I dropped as Derek continued his tirade. It seems he'd seen me helping out at the restaurant and completely misinterpreted the situation. "The company's financial state isn't good, is it? I saw you working another job recently. Things must be so bad that you're forced to take on extra work." "No, there's a reason." I hurried to clear up his misunderstanding, but Derek quickly talked over me, as if determined to silence me. His actions made it clear that he wasn't interested in any explanation, he just wanted to drag me down. Looking at me with a smug expression, he raised his voice even more. "On top of that, I heard you're in a loveless marriage and have been forcing other companies into deals to keep us afloat. My father told me everything. If that's what it takes to keep this company running, then there's no future here." Derek's father is a manager at Foster Foods, so it's possible he'd have access to certain details about our company. I don't know the exact power dynamics within that company, but given his past of stalking Molly, he might have done some digging himself. It wasn't surprising that Derek's father seemed well informed about things on our side. The other new hires nodded along in agreement, following Derek's lead as he condemned me. At that moment, another issue surfaced. Molly emerged from the conference room, her face pale. She walked up to me and whispered, "Your father collapsed. He was taken to the hospital, but he didn't make it." "What?" "Your mother thought you wouldn't be able to stay calm if she told you herself, so she called me instead." The sudden news hit me hard, and I sank to my knees as my vision went dark. The only thing keeping me grounded was the feeling of Molly's hand, gently comforting me. "Your father's last words were that he wanted you to take over the company. According to your mother, he'd been suffering from overwork for a while. He collapsed while handling work outside the office." Even Derek and his followers went silent in the face of this news. But Derek wasn't done yet. He turned to the other employees and addressed them. "I feel for him, but we need to think about our own futures. If someone like him becomes CEO, then this company has no future. Don't you all agree?" "Yeah, Derek's right. We can't make a living if we stay here." Encouraging the uncertain employees, Derek turned back to me, his voice resolute as he threw something down in my direction. "We're leaving and taking half the staff with us." A flurry of envelopes scattered in front of me. Each was marked resignation letter. Half. That meant Derek had thrown down 30 resignation letters. Losing almost half of the company's workforce would be a severe blow. "It seems like karma has finally caught up with you for deceiving us. You ignored my advice, and your father was no better. Maybe his passing was simply the punishment he deserved. We're leaving this company, and there's nothing you can do about it." I tried to face Derek seriously, but clearly, none of it had reached him. No longer caring to respond sincerely, I gave a dismissive answer and turned my back on them. "Go right ahead." "Huh? Did Derek actually expect me to try to stop him?" His baffled expression was almost comical. "Don't pretend you're not worried. I know you're panicking on the inside." Looking skeptical, Derek said this before leading the 30 employees out of the building. It appeared he hadn't been bluffing. When I checked the resignation letters he'd thrown down, I saw that each one was properly signed. But they'd come to regret this decision soon enough. No, I'd make sure of it. I'd work hard as CEO, prove myself, and show everyone, including those who left, what they missed out on. With renewed determination, I reached for the box of ice cream that had been left behind. The time spent had caused it to melt, and sticky liquid was already seeping through the cracks in the box. Several months later. Since Derek and the others had left, I'd been working alongside new employees. There were moments when I'd worried about the company's future, but things were going well. Our work was steady, and our client list was growing. Molly constantly reminded me not to overwork myself like my father had, so I reached out to various people for help. I even asked former employees to return, brought in help from a friend who owned a restaurant, and relied on every connection I had. Thanks to those efforts, the company entrusted to me by my father continued to thrive. With a major business deal underway, the company's future was looking secure. One day, the former new hires returned to the office, looking visibly uncomfortable. They bowed their heads in apology, one after another. "We're sorry. Is there any chance we could take back our resignations?" The company we were supposed to join suddenly told us they didn't know who we were. It was Foster Foods. Most of those who resigned planned to join Foster Foods Company. This was something they casually mentioned when they were leaving this company. But since Foster Foods had a close relationship with me, they hadn't accepted those who'd chosen to abandon my company. Derek should have been aware of this, but he likely kept it to himself, prioritizing his desire to harm my reputation over being honest with the others. Those who left, thinking Foster Foods was waiting for them, had been played by Derek's manipulations. "We're truly sorry. Could you possibly take us back? Please." Among those apologizing, one person stood out, looking particularly uneasy. It was Derek. But unlike the others, his expression wasn't one of apology, he was glaring at me with unmistakable resentment. Derek was clearly hostile. "Your performance in our interview was poor, Derek. But I understood that as new graduates, you'd have your weaknesses, and I hired you despite them. Other companies simply weren't as forgiving." "No, that can't be." Derek's face twisted in disbelief, and he muttered, "This has to be a lie," before storming toward me. "Hey, you must have done something. This is all your fault, isn't it?" I quietly stepped aside to avoid him and turned my attention to the others, who continued to apologize. "Are you all serious about making a fresh start here?" "Yes, we've come back to make up for our mistakes. After seeing how other companies operate, we realized this was the best place for us. People make mistakes. I didn't hold it against them for getting the wrong idea, that was human nature. But spreading unverified information as fact, that was unacceptable. Do you understand what went wrong?" "Yes. We now know you were only helping out a friend's restaurant. We've looked into everything Derek told us since then. We can't believe how foolish we were at the time. If they truly intended to reflect and start over, I wasn't about to deny them a second chance." I addressed the apologetic new hires. "I'll conduct another interview, so come to the office at the time I'll be providing shortly." Relief washed over their faces as they thanked me, visibly grateful. But as for Derek, I had nothing to offer him. It wasn't just that he left the company, I couldn't forgive the way he insulted my father. Finally, I turned my gaze toward him. "Derek, during your time here, you often spoke disparagingly of me as your manager. And your insults toward my father cannot be overlooked. I won't tolerate anyone who disturbs the workplace atmosphere and manipulates their peers." Derek shot me a fierce glare, then turned his back. "I'd never work under you again, anyway. But mark my words, I'll get my revenge." With that, he walked out. I didn't know what he might be plotting, but for the sake of my company and employees, I resolved to stay vigilant. Despite the lingering worry over Derek, I threw myself into work. We had several big projects underway, including a major business deal and a new product launch. By the time I got home, it was usually around midnight, but even at that hour, Molly would be up waiting to greet me. I can't thank her enough for reheating dinner and preparing a warm bath for me. I decided to ask her something that had been on my mind for a while. "Molly, I know our marriage was initially out of convenience for both of us. But how do you feel about it now? Why do you ask all of a sudden?" Molly was chuckling softly, but she must have realized that I was serious. She responded with a serious expression on her face. I do love you, you know. Even if the initial reason was more practical, like dealing with my stalker. I feel the same way. Hearing her honest answer, I felt a wave of relief. Looking at her warm smile, I felt my heart ease. I realized I'd felt this way soon after our marriage. If I'd shared my feelings back then, I wouldn't have had to carry around this uncertainty. Now that we know we're on the same page, how about we take a trip somewhere together? Sure, where should we go? Why don't you choose? I'm not very good at this sort of thing. Having something to look forward to would motivate me even more with work. There's a new hot springs resort that just opened last month. I've been wanting to go. A hot spring sounds great. I'll make sure to clear my schedule. Molly beamed with excitement. And there's a popular restaurant nearby that's tough to book. Let's try it while we're there. We ended up talking about our trip plans until dawn. 3 years passed. Since that day, Derek never returned to my company, but his name started circulating within the industry. It seems that Derek has gone ahead and started a new company. His company is rapidly growing and making a strong impact in our industry. Then, one day, he suddenly approached my company with a business proposal. He wanted to sell us essential seasoning ingredients for processed foods at exorbitant prices. Naturally, the sales team, knowing the history, turned him down, but Derek was relentless. He continued contacting the sales team under various pretenses, disrupting their work. Apparently, he often argued with our salespeople, saying, "Why won't you agree to a deal? I'm going out of my way to reach out here." Sure. It might be a bit pricey, but this is from a famous company. I heard he even came close to physically intimidating one of our employees. At first, I thought he was just trying to waste our time and hinder our operations, but it seemed I'd misjudged his intentions. When I met with him at his office, he confidently explained his reasoning. My company is about to become number one in this industry. If you think about it, the smart move is to partner with me now. Isn't that obvious? The food industry is buzzing about my company. Once I'm on top, it'll prove I was right all along. It seemed clear that he wasn't just trying to pull us down, he genuinely wanted to assert his superiority over my company. And above all, he still couldn't bring himself to acknowledge his own mistakes. It would have been ideal to secure a deal with such a promising company, but I turned it down. The reason was that the employees at his company looked completely lifeless. Watching them walk down the hallways with pale faces and blank expressions, I realized this company had no future. And as it turned out, my intuition was right. Derek's rapidly growing company hit a major decline at one point. One by one, employees started quitting, and the business couldn't stay afloat. Apparently, Derek's approach was extremely forceful, and he was making his employees work to the breaking point. Former employees, now working elsewhere, mentioned that working there felt like being in a black company, a term for toxic workplaces. Nobody could keep up with the endless hours Derek demanded, and eventually, they all left. Now, his company is on the brink of bankruptcy. However, it seems Derek couldn't understand why this was happening. He even went to the homes of those who left, trying to persuade them to come back. Despite his efforts, not a single person returned. Then one day, I happened to run into Derek wandering aimlessly through town, so I decided to have a talk with him. "Derek, can we talk for a bit?" "What, did you just come here to mock me?" "Not at all. Let's sit in that nearby park and talk." We walked over to a park bench and sat down. Since we weren't on friendly terms for idle chit-chat, I got straight to the point. "You don't understand the value of people because you only see them as pieces on a board for your own use." I told him what I'd felt for a long time. Derek looked at me, surprised. "What did you just say? Also, you're too convinced that your way is the only right one. There's wisdom to be learned from others' methods." "So, you're saying I was foolish?" He probably hadn't realized his own flaws until now. I could see the irritation as he ran his hands through his hair. So you're saying I should just lower myself to accommodate foolish people? That's not it. It means you should respect other people's ways and not force your own approach on everyone. Not everyone has the same abilities. So basically, you're saying my failure is my own fault. With a self-deprecating tone, Derek muttered that he should have paused to reflect before things got to this point. But because he couldn't recognize his own shortcomings, this was the result. Looking downcast, Derek murmured quietly, "Why did you even bother talking to me? Because you're still young. You can start over. It would be a waste to let this be the end." After a brief moment of thought, Derek wiped his eyes and stood up. "I shouldn't be sitting here. I need to get back and turn things around." Seeing a hint of life back in his expression, I simply nodded. "I'm glad to hear that." I hoped my words had given him a little bit of encouragement. Afterward, Derek seemed to struggle quite a bit. But he changed his attitude, hired new employees, and managed to avoid bankruptcy. He even visited my company with a box of sweets to apologize. Back then, I was wrong to deceive people into quitting for my own gain. I'm truly sorry. At first, the former employees who joined my company were angry, but most of them have now forgiven him. I think Derek will be fine now. He should be able to work while genuinely caring for his employees. I hope he builds a good company from here on. As for me, with things at my company calming down, I decided to go on a date with Molly. We'd lived without really speaking honestly with each other, so there's a lot I want to discuss. The day before our date, as I finished work early to head home, the employees called out to me. "Good luck on your date with your wife tomorrow. Thank you for all your hard work. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you all for your help, too. Make sure you all take breaks when you need them." It's easy to grow arrogant when you're in a position of power, but I resolved to keep myself grounded and always value my employees. With that thought in mind, I set off, feeling excited for my date with Molly.